The transport shuttle Lucky Strike shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace, and Marcus Chen pressed his face to the small porthole to get his first glimpse of Zephyr Station. The massive research facility hung like a metallic flower against the swirling storms of the gas giant Nereus, its sensor arrays and laboratory modules extending in graceful arcs that spoke of peaceful scientific purpose rather than military function. "First time in the Outer Rim?" asked the pilot, a gruff centauran whose tentacles operated the controls with casual expertise. "Yeah," Marcus replied, which was technically true. The ghost of Arcturus had never been assigned to this sector, though Colonel Chen had reviewed countless tactical assessments of every major installation within 300 light-years. Old habits. Quiet out here. Perfect for folks who want to disappear for a while. The pilot's tone suggested he'd transported plenty of people seeking anonymity in the remote research stations. "Station commander is Dr. Thainru, decent sort for a Vellani. Treats everyone fair, doesn't ask too many questions about past assignments." Marcus nodded gratefully. His forged credentials identified him as Marcus Chen, civilian maintenance technician with basic certifications in environmental systems and communications repair. The real story, that he was Colonel Marcus Chen, holder of the Star of Valor, and the man who had held the Arcturus line for 72 hours against impossible odds while watching his entire battalion die, would remain buried in classified military files. The docking procedure was smooth, and Marcus gathered his single duffel bag containing everything he owned. 3 sets of technician coveralls, basic tools, a few personal items, and buried at the bottom, his metal case. The only thing he couldn't bring himself to throw away, though he never looked at it. Marcus Chen reporting for maintenance duty, he told the reception clerk, a young Vellani whose scaled skin shimmered with nervous patterns. "Excellent timing," the clerk said, consulting his display. "Dr. Kuravel has been requesting additional technical support for the astrophysics lab. She's brilliant but somewhat intensive in her equipment requirements." Marcus was escorted through corridors that hummed with the peaceful activity of scientific research. No weapon emplacements, no tactical choke points, no defensive positions. Just laboratories, living quarters, and observation decks designed to unlock the mysteries of the universe rather than destroy enemy fleets. He found Dr. Kuravel in Laboratory 7, surrounded by a chaos of instruments, displays, and what appeared to be a partially disassembled sensor array. She was tall even for a Vellani, her reptilian features elegant and intelligent, with the distinctive violet eyes that indicated high academic rank among her people. "Oh, thank the stars," she said without looking up from her work. "Please tell me you're the new technician and that you understand quantum resonance calibration." "I'm the new technician," Marcus confirmed, "and I might be able to help with your calibration issues, depending on what you're trying to accomplish." Kuravel finally turned to face him, and Marcus was struck by the genuine warmth in her expression. Most people who learned to recognize him, either as the war hero or simply as a human, showed either awe, fear, or predatory interest. Kuravel looked at him like he was simply another person worth knowing. "I'm Dr. Kuravel, and I'm attempting to prove that the aurora patterns in Nereus's magnetosphere correspond to interdimensional energy fluctuations." She gestured enthusiastically at her equipment array. "The problem is, every time I achieve the sensitivity levels necessary for proper readings, the equipment overheats and shuts down." Marcus studied the setup with the practiced eye of someone who had jury-rigged life support systems under enemy fire, though he was careful to approach the problem like a technician rather than a tactical engineer. "Your power distribution is uneven. The primary sensor array is drawing too much current from the secondary circuits. Can you fix it?" "Probably. Give me a few hours to run diagnostics and rebalance the power flow." Marcus set down his tool case, grateful for work that involved creation rather than destruction. "Mind if I ask what got you interested in interdimensional energy?" Kurevel's eyes lit up with scientific passion. The mathematical models suggest that certain astronomical phenomena might be windows into parallel realities. If I can prove that the aurora storms are actually dimensional rifts, it could revolutionize our understanding of spacetime mechanics. As she explained her theories, Marcus found himself genuinely engaged with her ideas. Her intelligence was impressive, but more importantly, her enthusiasm was infectious. When had he last met someone whose biggest concern was unlocking cosmic mysteries rather than surviving the next battle? "That's fascinating," he said, and meant it. "I've never thought about auroras as anything more than pretty lights." Most people haven't. That's what makes the research so exciting, discovering that beautiful phenomena might be gateways to infinite possibilities. Kurevel paused, studying his face with scientific curiosity. "You have an interesting way of looking at technical problems, Marcus Chen. Your diagnostic approach is quite sophisticated for standard maintenance training." Marcus felt the familiar spike of anxiety that came with anyone showing too much interest in his capabilities. "I've worked on a lot of different systems over the years. You pick up tricks. Well, your tricks are exactly what my research needs. How would you feel about extending your assignment here? I could use a permanent technical assistant for this project." The offer was tempting, more tempting than Marcus had expected. "I'll have to see how well we work together first. Don't want to promise something I can't deliver." Kurevel smiled, and Marcus realized it was the first genuinely kind expression directed at him in months. "I have a feeling we'll work together just fine." As the station's day cycle shifted toward evening, Kurevel invited him to the observation deck to watch the aurora storms that were the focus of her research. Standing beside her as the gas giant's magnetosphere painted the darkness with ribbons of green and gold light, Marcus felt something he had thought the war had killed forever: peace. "It's beautiful," he said quietly. "It's infinite possibility," Kurevel replied, her voice full of wonder. "Every storm might be a glimpse into another universe, another version of reality where things turned out differently." Marcus found himself thinking about alternate realities where his battalion had survived Arcturus, where he was still the optimistic young officer who believed in honor and duty, instead of the broken veteran who could only find anonymity in the deepest reaches of space. "Do you think those other realities can see us too?" he asked. "I hope so," Kurevel said. "I hope somewhere, in some other dimension, there are versions of us who got to live the lives we dreamed of before the galaxy taught us that dreams are dangerous." Marcus glanced at her, wondering what dreams this brilliant scientist had been forced to abandon, but he didn't ask. Some questions were too dangerous for people trying to rebuild themselves in the shadows of who they used to be. Instead, he focused on the aurora storms and tried not to think about the tactical implications of dimensional rifts, or whether an enemy fleet might use such phenomena for surprise attacks, or how many ways this peaceful research station could be destroyed by someone with the right knowledge and sufficiently ruthless intent. For tonight, he was just Marcus Chen, technician, standing beside Dr. Kurevel and watching the universe paint beautiful pictures in the darkness. 3 months on Zephyr Station had given Marcus something he hadn't experienced since before Arcturus: a routine that didn't involve calculating casualty rates or planning tactical retreats. His days began with equipment diagnostics, continued through collaborative problem-solving with Kurevel, and ended with evening conversations on the observation deck that had become the highlight of his carefully reconstructed existence. "The quantum resonance patterns are stronger tonight," Kurevel observed, adjusting her instruments as they watched the latest aurora storm paint Nereus's atmosphere in shades of electric blue. "I'm reading energy fluctuations that shouldn't be possible according to conventional physics." Marcus studied the readings over her shoulder, his tactical training automatically analyzing the data for patterns, while his technician persona focused on equipment function. "Your calibration is perfect. If the readings seem impossible, Maybe the reality is more complex than the textbooks assume. Spoken like a true scientist, Kurevel said with approval. Though I have to say, for a maintenance technician, you have remarkably sophisticated insights into theoretical physics. The compliment triggered Marcus's defensive instincts, but her tone held only genuine curiosity rather than suspicion. I read a lot during downtime. Scientific journals are more interesting than most entertainment programs. Most technicians I've known prefer action vids to quantum mechanics papers. Kurevel turned to face him fully, her violet eyes reflecting the aurora's glow. Marcus, may I ask you something personal? Every alarm in Marcus's mind started screaming. Depends on the question. What made you choose maintenance work? Your understanding of complex systems suggests you could have pursued advanced engineering, maybe even research science. Why settle for fixing other people's equipment? The question hit closer to home than she realized. Marcus had once commanded the most advanced tactical systems in the fleet, had been responsible for technologies that could reshape battlefields and alter the course of interstellar wars. Now he fixed coffee dispensers and recalibrated atmospheric processors, and somehow found more satisfaction in this simple work than he ever had in military glory. Sometimes, he said carefully, the most important job isn't the one with the most impressive title. Keeping the station running, making sure people can do their research safely, that matters more than personal advancement. Kurevel was quiet for a long moment, studying his expression in the aurora light. There's a story there, isn't there? Something that taught you the value of supporting others rather than seeking glory for yourself. Everyone has stories, Marcus replied, deflecting as gently as he could. What about you? What made you choose astrophysics over, say, medical research or engineering? Deflection noted and accepted, Kurevel said with a smile that indicated she understood his boundaries. I chose astrophysics because the universe is full of beautiful mysteries. I'd rather spend my life uncovering wonder than solving mundane problems. Marcus couldn't help but laugh. You do realize that most of what I fix for you falls into the mundane problems category. But you fix them so I can pursue the wonders. That makes you an essential part of the process of discovery. Kurevel's expression grew more serious. Marcus, I want you to know that these past months have been the most productive of my research career. Not just because of your technical skills, but because you listen to my theories without dismissing them as impossible. They're good theories, well-reasoned, carefully researched, elegantly proposed. Marcus found himself speaking from genuine admiration rather than politeness. You're going to revolutionize how people understand dimensional mechanics. We're going to revolutionize it, she corrected. This is collaborative work now. The word we sent an unexpected warmth through Marcus's chest. When had he last been part of a we that didn't involve military ranks and tactical objectives? When had someone last treated him as an equal partner rather than either a legendary figure or a broken veteran to be pitied? Their conversation was interrupted by the station's communication system crackling to life. All department heads to the command center immediately. Priority Alpha alert. Marcus felt his tactical instincts snap to attention even as he maintained his casual technician demeanor. Priority Alpha meant potential external threat, the kind of alert that preceded emergency evacuations or defensive preparations. Probably just another false alarm, Kurevel said, but Marcus noticed the slight tension in her voice. We get sensor ghosts from the gas giant's electromagnetic interference sometimes. They made their way to the command center, where Dr. Thainru was conferring with his senior staff over a holographic display that made Marcus's blood run cold. Long-range sensors showed a formation of ships approaching from the galactic rim, 6 heavy cruisers in a pattern that Marcus recognized immediately as a hegemony assault formation. The vessels appear to be conducting a routine patrol, Dr. Thainru was explaining to his department heads. They've acknowledged our identification transponders and requested permission to conduct standard inspections. Marcus bit back the urge to grab the station commander by the shoulders and explain that hegemony forces didn't conduct routine patrols in the outer rim, and that their approach vector indicated attack pattern Delta 7, designed to overwhelm civilian defenses through coordinated assault. Instead, he raised his hand slightly, hoping his suggestion would be taken seriously. "Dr. Thainru, sir, might I suggest we run full diagnostic checks on all defensive systems? If they're conducting inspections, they'll expect our security measures to be fully operational." The station commander looked puzzled. "Defensive systems, Mr. Chen, we're a research facility. Our defensive systems consist of emergency, blast doors and evacuation protocols." Marcus felt sick. Zephyr Station had no real defenses, no tactical capabilities, no way to protect the 300 researchers and support staff who called it home. The hegemony assault ships could reduce the station to debris within minutes, and no one in command seemed to understand the magnitude of the approaching threat. "Perhaps we should contact Fleet Command," he suggested desperately. "Request a security escort, just as a precaution." "Mr. Chen," Dr. Thainru said with gentle condescension, "you're a maintenance technician, not a military strategist. I appreciate your concern, but these matters are beyond your expertise." Marcus watched the tactical display, his trained eye reading the hegemony formation's approach vectors, timing, and probable attack patterns. 18 hours until they reached optimal assault position. Maybe 20 hours until Zephyr Station and everyone aboard it ceased to exist, including Kurevel, whose research into dimensional mechanics might unlock secrets that could benefit all of galactic civilization, whose enthusiasm for cosmic mysteries had reminded him what it felt like to hope for something beyond mere survival, whose simple friendship had begun healing wounds he thought were permanent. As the meeting dispersed, Kurevel approached him with concern evident in her expression. "Marcus, you look like you've seen a ghost. Are you worried about these ships?" Marcus stared at the tactical display, watching death approach on predictable vectors, while people who had become his family remained blissfully unaware of their approaching annihilation. "Kurevel," he said quietly, "how much do you trust me?" "Completely," she replied without hesitation. "Why?" Marcus closed his eyes, knowing that what he was about to do would destroy the peaceful anonymity he had built, would expose him to questions he wasn't ready to answer, and would probably end the only genuine friendship he had managed to maintain. "All personnel to emergency stations," Dr. Thainru's panicked voice echoed through the communication system. "We are under attack by unknown hostile forces." Marcus burst into Kurevel's laboratory, where she was staring in shock at displays showing the station's outer hull being systematically destroyed by precisely targeted energy weapons. "Kurevel, grab your emergency kit and move toward the evacuation bays. Now." "Marcus, what's happening? The commander said these were routine patrols." The commander was wrong. Marcus was already at her workstation, his fingers flying over controls with the practiced efficiency of someone who had coordinated fleet-level tactical systems. "These are hegemony assault ships. They're not here for inspections." Another explosion, closer this time, sent both of them stumbling as artificial gravity fluctuated. Emergency lighting bathed the laboratory in hellish red as primary power systems began failing throughout the station. "How do you know about hegemony assault patterns?" Kurevel asked, but she was already gathering her research data and emergency supplies with the quick thinking that had made her an excellent scientist. Marcus paused in his work at the station's internal communication console, realizing that his cover was already blown. A maintenance technician shouldn't know military terminology, shouldn't be able to access tactical systems, shouldn't be coordinating defensive responses with professional precision. "Because," he said grimly, activating the station-wide communication system, "I'm not who you think I am." His voice echoed throughout Zephyr Station as he took command of a situation spinning rapidly toward complete disaster. All personnel, this is Colonel Marcus Chen, assuming emergency command authority. We have 18 minutes before hull breach in sectors 7 through 12. Evacuation Protocol Delta is now in effect. All civilians to transport bays 3 and 4 immediately. The silence in the laboratory was deafening as Kurevel stared at him with an expression of complete shock. "Colonel, Marcus, what are you talking about?" "Later," Marcus said, his attention focused on the tactical displays showing hegemony boarding parties approaching the station's docking bays. "Right now, I need you to trust me and move toward the evacuation point." "I'm not leaving you. Kurevel, I said I'm not leaving you." Her voice carried the same determination she brought to her scientific research. "I don't care if you're a colonel or a maintenance technician or the emperor of the galaxy. You're my friend, and friends don't abandon each other." Marcus felt something crack inside his chest at her words, but there was no time for emotional processing. The station's defensive grid was completely inadequate for a hegemony assault, but he might be able to buy enough time for civilian evacuation if he could access the main tactical control systems. "Then stay close and do exactly what I tell you," he said, leading her through corridors that were becoming increasingly treacherous as hull breaches vented atmosphere and debris into space. They reached the station's primary control center to find it in chaos, with Dr. Thainru and his staff struggling to coordinate an evacuation they had never properly planned for. Marcus pushed through the crowd and began rapidly accessing systems that required command-level authorization codes that a maintenance technician should never have possessed. "Mr. Chen, what are you doing?" Dr. Thainru demanded. "These systems require military clearance, which I have." Marcus's fingers moved across the control interfaces with mechanical precision, years of combat experience taking over as he rerouted power, sealed compromised sections, and began coordinating a fighting withdrawal that might actually save lives. "Dr. Thainru, I need you to focus on civilian evacuation. Get everyone to the transport bays and prepare for immediate departure. But the research data can be replaced. People cannot." Marcus activated the station's internal defense grid, hoping that the minimal security systems might slow the hegemony boarding parties long enough to complete the evacuation. "Kurevel, can you help coordinate the astrophysics department evacuation?" She stared at him with an expression he couldn't read: shock, hurt, confusion, and something that might have been betrayal all mixed together. "Who are you really?" Marcus met her eyes briefly, knowing that his answer would probably end whatever relationship they had built together. "I'm Colonel Marcus Chen, formerly of the 7th Fleet Tactical Command. They call me the Ghost of Arcturus." The recognition in her expression was immediate and devastating. Everyone in the galaxy knew the story of Arcturus, the lone survivor who had held an impossible position for 3 days, the tactical genius who had saved 200,000 civilians, lives through a combination of brilliant strategy and legendary stubbornness. The war hero whose refusal to retreat had become the stuff of military legend. "The Ghost of Arcturus disappeared after the war," Kurevel said quietly. "Military records show he died in a transport accident." "Military records show what I needed them to show." Marcus turned back to the tactical displays as hegemony forces breached the station's outer defenses. "Kurevel, I need you to go. The evacuation transports are ready, and they can't wait much longer." "What about you?" Marcus was already moving toward the weapon lockers, retrieving military-grade equipment he hadn't touched in months. The weight of the plasma rifle felt familiar in his hands, muscle memory, overriding his carefully cultivated civilian reflexes. "Someone needs to hold the boarding parties long enough for the transports to reach safe hyperspace distance." He checked his weapon's charge and power settings with professional efficiency. "That someone is me. Marcus. My name is Colonel Chen," he said, and his voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to making life-and-death decisions in impossible situations. "And right now, I'm ordering you to evacuate with the other civilians." Kurevel stared at him for a long moment, her violet eyes reflecting the emergency lighting as she processed everything that had happened in the past hour. The quiet maintenance technician she had grown to care about had transformed into a legendary military figure whose reputation was built on calculated violence and tactical ruthlessness. "The research," she said suddenly. "My dimensional mechanics data. If the hegemony gets it, they could weaponize the technology." Marcus realized she was right. Kurevel's theories about dimensional rifts could be turned into devastating strategic weapons in the wrong hands. "Where is the data stored?" "Laboratory 7, but it's in the path of the main boarding assault." Marcus shouldered his rifle and headed for the door. "Then I guess I know where I'm going." "I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not. It's my research, my responsibility." Kurevel grabbed an emergency kit and followed him toward the corridor. "Besides, you'll need someone who understands the data structure to ensure complete destruction." As they moved through the battle-damaged station, Marcus found himself working with someone who trusted him despite everything she had just learned. Kurevel might not understand who he really was, but she still believed he was someone worth following into danger. "Kurevel," he said as they approached Laboratory 7, "when this is over, we're going to need to have a very long conversation." "Yes," she agreed, checking her scientific equipment with the same careful attention he gave to his weapons. "We are." The laboratory doors opened to reveal 3 hegemony soldiers already accessing Kurevel's research computers. Marcus stepped through the doorway with the fluid grace of someone who had fought similar battles 100 times before, his plasma rifle speaking with deadly accuracy. For the first time in months, the ghost of Arcturus was back in the war. The medical facility on Kepler Station smelled of antiseptic and recycled air, but Marcus found it preferable to the smoky chaos of Zephyr Station's final hours. 6 weeks of recovery had given his body time to heal from the plasma burns and shrapnel wounds, but his mind remained focused on the moment. Kurevel had looked at him with recognition, and something that might have been betrayal. "Colonel Chen," Dr. Morrison said, reviewing his medical chart, "your physical recovery has been remarkable. The psychological evaluation, however, suggests you're still processing significant emotional trauma related to identity disclosure." "I'm fine," Marcus replied automatically, the same response he had given to every medical inquiry for the past month and a half. "Are you? Because according to your file, this is the first time since Arcturus that you've voluntarily resumed military action. That suggests either significant progress in your recovery or a complete breakdown of the coping mechanisms you developed during your civilian period." Marcus stared out the medical bay window at the bustling activity of the core world station, wondering which interpretation was correct. Had saving Zephyr Station been a step toward healing, or simply another way of running from the person he was trying to become? His contemplation was interrupted by a familiar voice at the doorway. "May I come in?" Marcus turned to see Kurevel standing in the entrance, carrying a small package and wearing civilian clothes that somehow made her seem more alien and more familiar simultaneously. "Kurevel, I wasn't sure you'd want to see you." She entered the room and settled into the visitor's chair, her violet eyes studying his face with scientific precision. "I spent 6 weeks researching everything I could find about Colonel Marcus Chen, the ghost of Arcturus, and the Battle of Arcturus Line." Marcus felt his stomach clench. "And what did you learn?" "I learned that you were 28 years old when you watched your entire battalion die while following orders to hold an impossible position. I learned that you single-handedly coordinated the defense of a civilian evacuation that saved 200,000 lives. I learned that you disappeared from military service immediately after receiving the Star of Valor, and that most military analysts believe you suffered a complete psychological breakdown." "That about covers it," Marcus said quietly. What it doesn't cover, Kurevel continued, is why a decorated war hero chose to hide his identity and work as a maintenance technician on a remote research station. Marcus met her gaze, knowing that she deserved the complete truth even if it destroyed whatever remained of their relationship. Because I couldn't live with being the ghost of Arcturus anymore. Every time someone called me a hero, all I could think about was the friends who died following my orders. Every time someone praised my tactical genius, I remembered that my brilliant strategy was just refusing to retreat while people I cared about got killed around me. So you became Marcus Chen, technician. I became someone whose greatest responsibility was fixing coffee dispensers and calibrating sensors. Someone who could help people without getting them killed. Marcus looked down at his hands, which had held both plasma rifles and repair tools with equal competence. Someone who could be useful without being dangerous. Kurevel was quiet for a long moment, processing his words with the same careful analysis she brought to her scientific research. Marcus, may I tell you what I observed during our friendship on Zephyr Station? If you want. I observed a man who listened to my theories without dismissing them as impossible, who fixed my equipment not just competently, but with genuine interest in helping me succeed, who treated every person on the station with respect and kindness, regardless of their species or position. Kurevel leaned forward in her chair. I observed someone who had learned that true strength comes from supporting others rather than commanding them. Marcus looked up, surprised by the warmth in her voice. Kurevel, I lied to you for 3 months. I let you believe I was someone completely different. Did you? Because the person who brought me coffee every morning and listened to my dimensional mechanics theories was still you. The person who stayed late to help calibrate my equipment and joined me on the observation deck to watch aurora storms was still you. She reached into her package and withdrew a small data crystal. The person who risked his life to save my research and 300 innocent people was still you. What's that? Marcus asked, indicating the crystal. My complete research data on dimensional mechanics. The hegemony forces destroyed my laboratory, but I managed to preserve the theoretical framework and mathematical models. Kurevel held up the crystal, its surface reflecting the medical bay's lights like a tiny star. I've been offered positions at a dozen major research facilities, all eager to have the scientist who survived the Zephyr Station incident. Marcus felt a hollow sensation in his chest. Congratulations, that's wonderful news. It would be if I wanted to work alone. Kurevel set the crystal on his bedside table. Marcus, I've also been offered something else. A joint research position developing early warning systems for remote settlements. The work would combine astrophysical sensor technology with tactical threat assessment. Basically, using my expertise in cosmic phenomena and your knowledge of military strategy to protect civilian populations. They want the ghost of Arcturus back in service. They want Marcus Chen, the man who chose to use his abilities to protect people rather than destroy enemies. Kurevel's expression grew serious. The question is, what do you want? Marcus stared at the data crystal, thinking about dimensional rifts and aurora storms, about tactical systems used for protection rather than conquest, about the possibility of being useful without being dangerous. I want, he said slowly, to work with someone who sees me as a partner rather than a legend or a broken veteran, someone who challenges me to be better than I thought I could be. Good, Kurevel said with a smile that reminded him of their first meeting in Laboratory 7. Because I want to work with someone who understands that fixing things is just as important as building them, and that sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is help others succeed. Marcus reached for the crystal, its weight somehow representing all the possibilities they might discover together. Kurevel, there's something you should know. The person you fell in love with is sitting right here, she interrupted gently. Marcus, I didn't fall in love with Colonel Chen or with Marcus the technician. I fell in love with the man who brought me coffee, and listened to my theories and chose to protect innocent people, even when it cost him everything he had built. That man comes with a lot of baggage. So does every person worth knowing. Kurevel stood and moved closer to his bed. The question isn't whether you have a complicated past. The question is whether you want a future where that past serves something better. Marcus looked up at her, seeing in her violet eyes the same wonder and determination that had made him fall in love with her enthusiasm for cosmic mysteries. Together, always together, though I should warn you, our new research station will need someone who understands both dimensional mechanics and tactical threat assessment. It's going to require some very sophisticated technical work. Marcus laughed, the sound surprising him with its genuine joy. Well, I happen to know someone who's pretty good with complex systems. Fair warning, though, he's got a reputation for being protective of the people he cares about. Perfect, Kurevel said, leaning down to kiss him with the gentle precision she brought to all her scientific work. Because the people he cares about have gotten quite attached to having him around. 3 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of their new research facility, watching the aurora storms of a distant nebula while monitoring the early warning sensor grid they had developed together. The facility was small, only 30 researchers and support staff, but it was theirs. Quantum resonance is stable across all detection arrays, Kurevel reported from her workstation, her equipment now seamlessly integrated with tactical monitoring systems that could identify threats while advancing pure scientific research. No hostile contacts within 50 light-years, Marcus replied, his tactical displays showing peaceful shipping lanes and routine scientific missions rather than approaching enemy fleets. You know, Kurevel said, joining him at the observation windows, I've been thinking about those alternate realities I theorized about back on Zephyr Station. What about them? I think maybe we found one. A reality where the ghost of Arcturus gets to be Marcus Chen, where a broken war hero becomes a protector instead of a weapon, where two people from different species